Hi folks, in this video I'll be talking about the Moza KS steering wheel. This won't be a typical review, there are already plenty of those on YouTube. Instead, I'll focus on the issues I encountered with this wheel and how Moza support helped me to resolve them. During my problems investigation I also came across complaints from other KS owners about various steering wheel related issues, so I'll cover those as well to give you a clear picture of what you might encounter when buying one of those. First wheel, first problem. I was really excited to get my new Moza gear, the R12 base and KS wheel after transitioning from the Fanatec CSLDD. By the way, I also made a comparison video of those two bases. If you're interested, check for the link in the video description. Overall, I had a very positive impressions of Moza until I ran into some quality issues. While I have had no problem with the R12 base so far, the steering wheel gave me quite a headache. This is actually my third steering wheel, and here's how it all went down. As soon as I started using my first KS wheel, I quickly noticed an issue. The buttons rattle, especially when going over aggressive curbs. This was a bit surprising since I had never similar experience with the Fanatec. The buttons on the steering wheel feel somewhat wobbly and can produce noise when exposed to high frequency feedback, like when driving over a curb. At first I thought this was a defect, but after some googling I found several Reddit threads with the other user complaining about the same issues. That said, it's not a huge deal. If you play with the headphones, the sound become less noticeable. More importantly, you don't really feel it through your hands, which I found to be the bigger problem. The second issue appeared pretty quickly. I started feeling a cracking sensation inside of the steering during the force feedback transitions, like when steering from the one side to another or hitting something on the track. This crackling feeling was really annoying because I could feel it through my hands, and at the point I had my new wheel only for a week or so. So that was the moment I decided to reach out Moza support about both issues, and the response was pretty fast. They basically said, hey, don't worry, stand it back and we'll exchange it for a functional one. Pay attention to that wording, a functional one. Well, okay, I was happy with the outcome, especially since Moza arranged the courier and covered the return costs. So the wheel was shipped to the Moza warehouse, and while waiting for a replacement I had to go back to racing with my old Fanatec. It took about a month to get the new wheel, and luckily I hadn't rushed to sell my Fanatec yet. Finally I got the replacement wheel and was eager to test it out. But from the very beginning something felt off. First, it didn't have a cover on the quick release unlike my first brand new one. This is how this cover should look like. Second, when I mounted it on my wheelbase, the Moza pit house didn't prompt me for a product activation. Instead, the wheel already had predefined button colors, whereas a brand new unit should have them all set to the same default color. On top of that, it already had a fairly recent firmware version inside. At the same time, the wheel body itself looked brand new, with no signs of wear or usage. My excitement quickly turned into disappointment as I realized they had sent me a refurbished wheel with used internal parts, despite the fact that my original wheel was less than a week old. Still, I decided to give it a try, as in the end it wouldn't matter if the wheel worked fine, but it didn't. There was no cracking inside like with the previous one, and the buttons were less rattly, though they still made a bit of noise. However, what I immediately noticed was a subtitle clicking sensation coming from my quick release mechanism, especially during the force feedback transition changes, just by steering left or right or when hitting curbs on a track. You can barely hear it, but you do feel it with your hands pretty well. It didn't affect the feel functionality, but it definitely impacted the overall feel. Much like the cracking issue on my first wheel, but it was more robust. Luckily my friend also had an R12 with the KS wheel, so I decided to test his wheel, and as expected there was no clicking or cracking on his. However, I did notice the quick release locking spring on my replacement wheel was significantly weaker than the one on his brand new. On top of that, I also found some cracking in my replacement wheel when applying horizontal movement. Of course, this isn't something you typically experience during a race, given the force direction, but just knowing that my wheel was built with such poor quality was pretty disappointing. I decided to confirm my suspicions about the steering wheel being not brand new, so I reached out to Moza support. And yes, they confirmed it. Remember when they said they would replace it with a functional one? Well, that's exactly what they did, but functional doesn't necessarily mean brand new. I wasn't satisfied with this, so I responded explaining that my original wheel was only a week old. If I wanted a functional but used product, I would have bought one from the used market and not paid full price for it. I also pointed out that this replacement wheel also has its own issues. Fortunately, Moza support accepted my arguments and offered to replace the wheel with a brand new one this time. After another 4 weeks on my Fanatec, I finally got my new KS wheel, which I've been using until today. This one has no internal creaking issues, the quick release lock spring is as stiff as it should be, and clicking sensation during force fight big duration change is almost non-existent. However, I do occasionally notice them, and I have no idea how to fix it. I haven't found any mentions on this issue over the internet either. It might be something related to the best shaft, and I might just have to get used to it. But if you know how to solve it, let me know in the comments. No one seems to talk about this, but it turns out there are actually 2 versions of the KS wheels on the market. Here's how you can tell them apart. The latest version has the middle button labeled MAP and Mix on the right grip. The previous version has the middle button labeled Turbo and Diff on the right grip. I'm not sure if the weaker quick release spring is a feature of the previous KS version, but mine definitely felt weaker comparing to the new one. On the positive side, the buttons on the older version were noticeably quieter in terms of rattle comparing to the new one. So let's go over the potential issues you might face with your KS wheel. First one, cracking inside the wheel. This was an issue with my first KS wheel, and there are plenty of posts on Reddit about it. Some say you might able to fix it yourself by deassembling the wheel and tightening the quick release mount inside of it. However, to take the wheel apart you have to peel off this front sticker, and it's almost impossible to do without damaging it. So if your wheel is still under the warranty, it's better to reach out to support first. Second one, buttons rattle. The older KS version has quieter buttons, while the new version buttons are noticeably louder. There's no real fix for this, just play with headphones and get used to it. Of course, you could open the wheel and DIY some rubber dampers over the buttons, but that's a rabbit hole. And also you'll have to peel off the front sticker, of course. Third one, middle map knob toggling on force feedback effect. I haven't experienced this issue on my wheel, but when I tried my friend's KS wheel, the middle knob was randomly changing the engine map setting through the force feedback input of the game.
Wow, it wasn't me. How come? Funny.
No idea how to fix this, maybe it's just better not to use this knob at all. The fourth one. Pedal shifters might come loose. This does happen. I know someone who had this issue and his wheel was replaced under the warranty. It's an easy fix in general, you just need to tighten those screws inside, but again that requires opening the wheel, which will destroy the front sticker. Overall, the KS wheel is great in terms of features and usability. It still has some quality concern in certain areas. Fortunately, Moza support is helpful and willing to sort things out. But the downside is the long wait time, which leaves you without your gear. Thanks for watching. If I missed any issues with this wheel, let me know in the comments, and if you know how to fix the clicking issue in the quick release, feel free to share that as well. I wish your gear stays trouble free, happy racing, bye bye.